Hey, Coach. One thing that you've emphasized throughout your coaching career is adapting your offensive approach and scheming towards the personnel on the roster. So for this year's Hawks squad, how do you plan to balance aspects of pace and space, pick and roll, and other offensive concepts to create that optimal offensive system?
You dug down and got that, huh? I firmly believe that.
Welcome back to another episode of Hawksology. Training camp began this week for the Hawks, and to kick everything off on Monday was Hawks Media Day. We were there to get some incredible insight and coverage about this year's Hawks squad and what everything is going to look like under Coach Quin Snyder. Overall, we've got an insane amount of information and insight that came from this year's Media Day, which is still just the tip of the iceberg. But to start off, I want to go over what we can learn about the offense and the system that Quin Snyder is going to implement from Media Day and a bit of training camp. And I'll lead you guys off with these two quick clips to give you an idea of what's on the way.
I mean, if you watch the Jazz play, like one of the guys I hated guarding when I first got in the league was Mike Conley. And whenever he left Memphis and went to Utah, every time we played them, I hated guarding him. And I've known Donovan for a while, so like I knew how tough that offense was to guard.
I feel like what he's done now, it gives you a lot more options, and I feel like it's going to be way harder to guard than in Utah. We were hard to guard in Utah too, but I feel like it's even better than it was then. So I honestly can't wait to see how it's going to work, and I feel like we have the right team, right players to really score a lot of points and make it hard for teams.
Yeah, so let's dive in now. First, it's been mentioned by Quin and the players that a big focus this year is shooting the three ball. But understand that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a lot of sets and actions specifically designed to generate open three-point shots. And I'll elaborate on that in just a second, but if you look at the roster, it's full of guys who have shooting as a main strength, guys that don't think twice if they're given space. And that's the key part right there. Think about how with John Collins, as much as he improved his three-point shot throughout the years, it wasn't his main strength. And teams were making us live and die by the JC three ball. As teams did that, it exposed huge holes in the Hawks' offensive flow, and there was not a lot of continuity in the offense after JC would get that ball wide open for three, whether he shot it or not. Those secondary actions to continue the offense were never implemented successfully, and the defense wasn't closing out hard on his shots, which was just a huge limitation to our spacing. Luckily, Quin Snyder has what he needs to fix those issues with continuity and spacing, which, again, is this roster full of skilled and confident shooters. Part of this system involves running these shooters in different screening actions, both off and on the ball, and encouraging them to let it fly if they have space when coming off one of those screens. Now, this doesn't mean that this Hawks team is going to live and die by the three-point shot. But considering that they've all been working daily on their shots with Kyle Korver, it'd be very unwise for opposing defenders to give these guys space. I asked a couple players about their experience training with Kyle Korver and got some surprising answers regarding the drills they were doing and just Kyle's attention to detail.
When I first got here after the draft, 3 days later, I was shooting with Kyle. He got me shooting barefoot, so I've been on the lab with him for sure.
It was a lot of stuff that was like not natural and kind of uncomfortable. Like we would do like shooting with my shoes off, being able to like feel your toes push up through the floor. So it was just like a lot of different things that you probably wouldn't think would help you with shooting that it honestly made a big difference for me. So it's like things like that, working on like my body as far as like my wrists, my shoulders, things like that. So it was a lot of, like I said, just a lot of things that you probably wouldn't think would help that helped. So I feel like that was probably one of the biggest things that helped me.
Kyle's real technical when it comes to shooting, whether it be from mindset to proper body mechanics. He's real technical. So a lot of things that he's helped me on is my balance. And, that's probably one of the main problems I have is staying on balance, whether I'm flying off screens or whatever. So he's he's helped me a lot when it comes to, just little mechanics that need to be, whether it's my left foot needs to be up a little bit more when I'm coming out, whatever it is. He's real mechanical, and it's interesting to learn from a guy like that.
You gotta love what he do, man. He's just a great person overall. Obviously, he had a great career shooting almost 43% for his whole career. So I take advantage of that. I talk to him all the time. We text frequently, honestly, and for him to be in the front office and to him to get on the court and work with me is that's a blessing, because you don't see people in the front office coming down from the office, stepping on the court and working with players. That's unheard of. So for him to be doing that with me quite often, almost every day, is that's huge for me, and I've been taking full advantage of that.
Once again, this experience and having Kyle Korver to work with is going to be something that makes our shooters all that more dangerous. And that's what's going to supply the offense with the necessary spacing. Now, the actions implemented on top of that spacing mean we're going to see a lot more defenders having to recover and close out hard, trying to run our shooters off of the three-point line. These hard closeouts are super important because it means the defender is hustling a lot more to contest the shot and get out there, which just makes them easier to blow by and also more susceptible to pump fakes. The way Quin Snyder implements reading and attacking closeouts, not just hard closeouts, but all closeouts in general, is also much quicker and more effective as far as creating an advantage compared to what we've seen in past years of Hawks basketball. Additionally, if help comes and takes away that advantage that guys get by properly attacking the closeout, Quin Snyder also knows how to implement secondary actions to make the style of play continuous. That goes back to the earlier point of JC being left open from three, because there was rarely any player movement or secondary action to continue the flow of the offense after that point. Overall, this just increases the total amount of player and ball movement, which increases the overall pace of play. It allows the offense to be dynamic and more unselfish, since every player on the court is going to be used and perceived as a weapon, instead of guys simply playing roles as floor spacers and just standing in the corner. Having this much movement and just this continuous system based on proactive reads of the defense is really going to showcase the scoring and playmaking talent of all of our players, not just Trey and DeJounte. Bogey is a great example. As teams try to run him off the three-point line, he'll have opportunities to demonstrate his talents of creating shots for himself and his teammates, because he'll also just have more opportunities as a ball handler in screening actions. DeAndre Hunter is another great example. Last season, he was statistically one of the best pull-up jump shooters in the league, and he'll be able to use those blow-by opportunities to create those shots. And also Jalen Johnson, who'll be able to take advantage of that faster pace as either a ball handler in transition or simply just given the opportunity to attack and take advantage of more closeouts. Both these scenarios put him going downhill, and he can either draw help defense in and show off his playmaking talents, finding his teammates, or just by simply attacking the basket. Now, while this episode will hopefully provide you with a lot of insight on the philosophy of the Hawks offense, I'm happy to also be restarting the Hawksology playbook series, where we'll break down specific plays and see more in depth how Quin Snyder brilliantly implements everything we talked about today, plus more. But as we stick to the general outlook of this offense, we'll wrap up today's episode with the full version of the clip at the very beginning as Coach Snyder explains the process of how he goes about creating and adapting an offensive system that allows each player to be the best version of themselves.
Hey Coach, one thing that you've emphasized throughout your coaching career is adapting your offensive approach and scheming towards the personnel on the roster. Mm-hmm. So for this year's Hawks squad, how do you plan to balance aspects of pace and space, pick and roll, and other offensive concepts to create that optimal offensive system?
You dug down and got that, huh? I firmly believe that. For any coach to try to maximize the players that you have, and that means you're not always going to have players with the same skill set in a team? How do they connect with each other? I think one of the key things is to know what you're really good at, and then also to know what can you improve at, and to not forget about what you do really well in the interest of just change for change's sake. So I think for us, we've been a really good offensive team. You know, we are really good playing pick and roll with our fives, in particular with Quin and O. Trey's gifted in that area. DJ's plays pick and roll in a different way, but that's been a big point of emphasis for him. You know, even this summer, he's worked on his pick and roll game. We want to continue to embrace that, but we also want to figure out how to move the ball in other ways, you know, to score out of other actions and other concepts. So we can have even more variety. And when we use Trey as an example, you know, Trey's so good in pick and roll. Trey's good off the ball too, you know, but the challenge is you can say that, but, you know, Trey, well, what do you want me to do off the ball? You know, that's, I think it becomes important for us to ask as coaches, how can we help these? If there's things we want them to do, you know, how can we try to create opportunities for them where they can do them? So, you know, DeAndre's post-up game, you know, those are all things. And I think, as you said, part of that adaptation, that's not like a decision that you make, and it just is. You know, that stuff you have to work on and grow, you know, over time. And then there's adjustments to it. You know, you may find out that a player, you know, doesn't know if he's better on the left side of the floor or the right side of the floor, but you start to figure that out. You know, someone shooting their range, whatever. You're developing individual styles of play and a collective style of play that hopefully fits the group. And, you know, in doing that, you know, the key thing is for the whole to be greater than the sum of the parts. You know, and the more people that are involved in what we're doing, I think the greater the likelihood that we can raise that whole.
It's absolutely awesome to be back, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking with a channel that was doing nothing for the past couple of months. But believe me, I've been putting in the work, and I'm happy to be rolling out a bunch of Hawksology content very soon and way more consistently, especially as we get close to the start of the regular season. As always, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.